Come read with me. This is Violet. We're reading from my second book, It Takes Two, a little bit me and a little bit you. This chapter is Moving Up. This is me speaking again. By this time, I had begun to feel like I was jinxed or something. I felt responsible for the failure of Randall's marriage simply because I was there. He assured me it was not so, that they were having problems long before I had moved in. However, I was once again looking for a place to move into. Fonda and her husband had recently moved into a different house on College Avenue. Her husband was working at Fresno State University, and the new place was closer to his work. She informed me that there was a small apartment next door for rent. It was a small one-bedroom apartment situated above a two-stall carport. It was only $50 a month. I contacted the landlord and rented it. The apartment was clean and freshly painted in white. It had a small kitchen with a stove that worked well but had a problem with the door hinge. If the oven was not closed very carefully, it would spring shut with a loud bang. There were plenty of windows, which I was glad for because there was no air conditioning or cooler. It was late summertime and temperatures often reached into the hundreds plus degrees. But at night, when the temperatures dropped, I could open the windows and get a breeze. The windows had no curtains when I moved in. With my limited funds, I shopped for what was cheapest. I went to Woolworths and purchased some plastic drapes, which were in style then. They were thin, about the thickness of a plastic bag, double layered with one layer of solid white and then an overlayer of printed clear plastic. Each set of drapes was long enough for a full-length window. For the shorter windows, you simply took the scissors and trimmed them to fit. The effect was very pretty, and each set of two could be purchased for a couple of dollars. For the living room, I chose white with blue flowers. The bedroom was done in pink and the kitchen in orange and yellow. Finally, after many months of turmoil, I was in my own place, and I loved the peace and freedom it afforded me. I spent hours cleaning, polishing, and waxing. I mopped and waxed my floors at least once a week. I did have one difficulty, though. As I said, it was summer and it was hot. I handled the heat in two ways. One, I wore only my swimsuit when I was upstairs in my own place. Sometimes I would go next door to Fonda's and cool down in her house. She had a swamp cooler as well as a large shade tree on the west side of the house, which blocked the afternoon sun and kept her house fairly comfortable. Her place was considerably cooler than mine. I had no yard or shade of any kind. The western wall would heat up terribly in the afternoon when the sun was on that side of the house. I had another difficulty. That was that I still had no car. Fonda and her husband had a used car that they offered to sell me for $500. I could make $50 per month payments. It was a white 1959 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, the one with the fins. It was a big luxury car with wide double doors and plush seats, power steering, power brakes, overdrive transmission. It had the works. The car was a huge boat, but it was available, and it was all I could afford at the time. A couple of weeks later, Daddy, realizing that the Cadillac was probably going to cost me more money in the long run, brought over a 1956 Chevrolet from the used car lot for me to test drive. I could have purchased it for $125 cash, but that seemed like a lot of money for me. I drove it, and though it had a clean body and interior, it had a little slip in the transmission that I was afraid of. I had already replaced the transmission in the Cadillac, and I didn't want any more major car problems. I opted to stick with the boat. Daddy did not try to convince me to buy the Chevy. I guess he realized that it was probably a futile exercise. Each week thereafter, I was at the bank, withdrawing money from my savings to fix some mechanical part on the Cadillac. The good thing was that Fonda's husband did the labor on the repairs. Another good thing was that there was a gas war on then, and though the car was a gas hog, I could fill the tank for about $5. Gas was ordinarily 35 cents a gallon at the major stations, and sometimes 5 gallons for $1 at the others. Occasionally, I would pull into the station and ask for 50 cents worth of gas. In my car, it didn't take me far, but it would often be enough to get me by until my allotment check came on the first of the month. The tires on the car were shot, and I was continually having flats. I could not afford to buy a new set of tires. It seemed that every other day I was putting something new on the car or having a tire repaired.